All right. Dr. Ritchie said she will not be able to attend, but she'll try her best to come in a little bit later. I think she's dealing with something locally. Let's see. Was Margaret able to come back in? Hi, Hamish. Karen, can you adjust Hamish's settings so that he's able to turn on his video and his microphone? Tiffany. Shannon is here as well. Hi, Shannon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right. Jen Delaney said that she will not be able to attend today. Jenny Graves should be coming in a bit, but I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 of us here. So we can go ahead and get the meeting started. And then as people kind of filter in, if there's anybody, once we've started the meeting in the waiting room area that needs their settings adjusted, we'll go ahead and do that. Karen, can you adjust Hamish's camera? It still shows that he can't turn it on.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 3:46 p.m. on Wednesday. Thank you for coming together for the special meeting so we can wrap up our legislative items and any regulation items and move those forward to the February LPDC in time to hit their agenda. So thank you all. I know that everybody's really busy, especially with all the things happening with the weather lately and trying to catch up from all of those weather days, we'll say. So we're going to go ahead and do the roll call.
All right. Cynthia Ritchie is not here. Kristen DeSega.
Here.
Elsa Batista.
Here.
Tiffany Cowett.
She's not here.
Jennifer Delaney.
Also not here.
Sarah Lar Fitzsimons.
Here. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. Jenny Graves.
Don't see her on yet.
Okay. Margaret Gustafson.
Margaret had signed off and was going to sign back on. She was having trouble with her feed, I think.
Okay. Dr. Mel Horton.
Here.
Hamish McPhail.
Here.
Shannon Merriman.
Here.
Patrice McCarthy.
Here.
Dr. Catherine Rowe. Is she here yet? Not yet. Bob Sartoris.
Here.
And DC Cynthia Solimaniano is elsewhere today. So she is not present. Okay.
Okay. And I am here as well.
And Jen Rodriguez, of course, the chair is here.
Second-year teacher, like I have to do these things, but again, it's like
Jenny Graves is here as well. I think she just signed in. So
Okay.
we see her on as well.
Yes.
All right. Great. Thank you, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started on the agenda. So we're not going to approve the minutes until February, where we will approve the January 12th as well as the January 26th minutes at that time in one quick swoop. I do see that Mel has her hand up there. Is there something?
Yes, I just wanted to ask if Catherine doesn't show up, can we agree that Dorothea is her alternate?
Yes. So if
Okay.
in the absence, if their alternate is here, then they would be the alternate.
Okay,
Correct. So
great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. All right, public participation, you received the public participation. We received, I believe, 4 items. 2 of them were from Mr. Trombley in regards to Dr. Ritchie's proposal. And then I believe we had 2 math-related items as well. So those are for your consideration, will be part as of the public record filed with Karen. We will not be going over Dr. Ritchie's proposal today. That will take more time and conversation. That'll be the February one. The purpose of this meeting today is really for us to get through the items that we didn't get to complete at the last meeting in terms of action items. So we want to kind of honor everybody's time and get right to that. Is there any questions on that? All right, so we may have a little bit of flexibility in the agenda in terms of which ones we do first. I think we should go directly into the legislative items that we have, the initial certification via alternate route, the removing of praxis core, and then maybe the initial to professional pathway, and then the regulations return to the ad hoc for further review, if that makes sense for everybody. All right, Kristen, if you want to go ahead and bring up the item, do you want to present it so you can kind of go through it fairly quickly and have those conversations?
Yes. Give me
Okay.
1 second to pull it up.
Sure. While she's doing that, welcome to our SDE friends. Thank you as always for helping to support this work. Karen Margaret is also online now. She was able to get in.
Dr. Rose also arrived.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So this is where we left off at our last board meeting. This was a discussion about the alternate route to certification programs and the need to keep the temporary 90-day certificate. Because one of the problems in Public Act 2441 is it said essentially that as long as you complete an alternate route program, then you get initial certification. However, that's not our current practice. Our current practice is if you complete an alternate route program and then hold a 90-day certificate, then your superintendent signs off and then you get initially certified. So this language in red was my first draft, and this is the one we discussed last. Since then, I was able to talk to our lawyer, and to Jen Delaney's point, she was like, well, don't we want to write this more flexibly in case later alternate route programs don't need a 90-day cert? If the 90-day program, or if the alternate route to certification program already has built into it the student teaching, then would a 90-day certificate be necessary? So in red, I'm going to put in one other draft. So I was asking our lawyer, does the wording as appropriate cover what Jennifer's concern was? Does it give that flexibility? And instead we were looking at this language. So what it might read now is successful completion of an alternate route to certification program pursuant to these sections, successful student teaching under a temporary 90-day certificate, or successful completion of student teaching as part of their alternate routes to certification program. I think that gives the flexibility that Jennifer was really looking for, so that if in the future an alternate route to certification program does include student teaching, that they don't have to go through the hoops of the 90-day certificate, but also recognize that right now you do need the temporary 90-day certificate because you haven't completed student teaching, right? So I'd like to move that this language highlighted in blue is what we move forward with. But I'd be happy to hear any discussion or what people's thoughts are before I make any motions.
Is there any discussion? All right, I see Julianne's hand up. Go ahead.
My question I'm actually going to put to Lauren. So my question is, should it say successful teaching under a temporary 90-day certificate or successful completion of appropriate student teaching? Because you could do 2 weeks of student teaching, and that's, again, when we say student teaching, we mean whatever's in program approval, which currently is 10 weeks. We don't know where that's going to be. So I don't know if we want to say appropriate student teaching or something to clarify what we mean by student teaching.
Right.
Right. Well, I think it's even a more complicated question. So at a minimum, I would agree with Julianne. But I
Okay.
think if we're talking about, can you just scroll up again to the beginning? Can you
Yes.
just, to like, to before the one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want, okay. So
So the
one of the
state
following
board-
pathways, yep. So your work, so
So either you complete your EPP approved by the State Board of Education, you complete your alternate route to certification, and either do your student teaching within that program or serve under your temporary 90-day certification, or you're an educator from another state that meets the other, transferring your certificate over, getting a new certificate here.
well, the other complicating factor, and I don't know if it belongs here or someplace else. So it says successful completion of an alternate route to certification program pursuant to section and successful teaching under a temporary 90-day certificate. It should say or 10-month successful teaching under the resident educator certificate, because remember, we have alternate route programs that lead to the temporary 90-day. We also have the CREC teacher residency alternate route program that does not lead to a temporary 90-day. Those candidates serve for 10 months under the resident educator certificate. We don't currently have an alternate route program that has a traditional student teaching. So if that third bucket, if you will, is successful completion of an alternate route to certification program, that first part, the pathways with an alternate route, are either a program that's been approved to go to the temporary 90-day or a program that's been approved to go to the resident educator certificate, and they serve under that. So to answer Julianne's question, I'm not quite sure why you would keep any traditional student teaching language in there, unless you want to keep the possibility that an EPP develops an alternate route program that contains a traditional student teaching semester in it. The current
exactly-
regulations define it as 10 weeks. That's part of the thing that's up for grabs as everyone looks to the regulation. So if you want to have that as an option, that a current alternate route could kind of do a traditional student teaching, then keep that third part. But I would consider adding the resident educator certificate
Yeah,
to
and just so
that section.
exactly. So that's what the new language that, Jennifer had brought up last time
Mhm.
was really concerned with, was she was
Sure.
worried that if it just said that you had to go to the temporary 90-day certification,
Mhm.
what if her program does already complete student teaching? Do they then have to still do the temporary 90-day? And just a little history of like where this initial conversation came from was that I forget who, but someone from the certification office had pointed out that the wording of the law in this section makes it look like as soon as you finish ARC or Charter Oak, that now you get an initial certificate,
Right,
which is not
right.
which is not the current practice.
Right.
So
So this is to clean that up. I would
Exactly.
consider adding the resident educator certificate, but I will add, I think part of the complexity is cleaning this up is aligning with the current regulations that are set to sunset July 1, 2026. So like every aspect of how a program is constructed is in the question mark category right now. And that's some of the work that core working group is going to be doing, and the endorsement specific working groups, and whether or not Connecticut wants to go in a direction where traditional programs have one set of requirements and alternate route providers have another set of requirements. Like it just, unfortunately, like it does open up the larger sort of philosophical conversations that the board hasn't yet engaged in.
I
Right.
did see that Patrice's hand was up and then Mel's hand was up, and they put them down. I just want to make sure that if there's anything that they wanted to say, they had an opportunity to. All right,
Yeah,
Julianne.
I
Oh,
would
sorry,
just-
Patrice, go ahead.
I would just, my only observation is that this is not my area of expertise, so I'm not going to opine on the specifics of it. But I am a little concerned that this is language that we're seeing today for the first time. And I just want to make sure that the people that do have the expertise are comfortable with where we end up, because
Valid
I'm
point.
relying
Thank
on
you.
them.
Yes, thank you. Julianne?
I just wanted to make a suggestion for consideration. What if we worded it as successful completion of an alternate route to certification program, blah, 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 including any student teaching, residency, or experience required by the program. So that way it's, because there's all different ways that you might fulfill that. It might be a resident educator. It might be a temporary 90-day. Maybe it'll be actual student teaching, you know.
Okay.
Or so any student teaching, residency, or other classroom experience required by the program or something like that. That way it's general enough that it can flex with any programs that might come down the pike, but it also can cover our current ones.
Thank you for that suggestion. All right, Dr. Rowe.
Yeah, thanks, Julianne. I agree with you. And maybe we can just say something more generic at the end, like, whatever the recommended or required clinical experience is, because I think that if the goal is to modernize and become more flexible, we may not be using a traditional student teaching model, but there might be something else. So having some kind of a generic term that would indicate it's a required clinical practice, I think would be helpful. So thanks for that launch, Julianne.
In which case, if we're in agreement with this language, give me 1 second. Pasted in red, what we can do is, I'd like to move it conditionally because I want to run it by the lawyer and make sure she doesn't see any holes or right. So I think if we pass it conditionally, I can run it by Emma, and then I will see you guys next Monday or something like this, and let you know how that turned out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I do like the fact that your suggested language, is more flexible. So it includes the residency. And when you had brought up the residency question, I think that's elsewhere in the general statute. So then I would want to make sure that I'm not like saying something here that conflicts over there. Right. So in which case, let's.
So the contingency then, or would read as a successful completion of an alternative route to certification program pursuant on those 4 sections. And then it would be or including any student teaching, residency, temporary 90-day. Is that how it would read? Is the contingency?
It would read.
There you go.
This. So completion of an alternate route to certification program pursuant to these sections, including any student teaching, residency, temporary 90-day certificate, or other required clinical practice by the program.
Okay. Dr. Ritchie, I see that your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. I was just thinking of the timeline and the suggestion that we have another meeting coming up very soon. If you're going to check with the attorney about this language, could we table this and take action on it at the next regular meeting?
The only concern that I would say about tabling it currently is that we were hoping to get this in on the agenda for LPCD, and we would need to get it into them by Monday or Tuesday of next week to ensure that it's on their agenda so that we can actually get it approved by them and then move it forward to the legislators on the contingency that SBE approves it in March. So our timeline is very short this time because of the short session. So if this is something that we want to get into in front of the legislators, we would have to do a contingency approval and then go from there. Because if we table it, it will not get in by the time needed for LPDC to approve it and then for us to get it to the legislator in time to have public hearings on it. Julianne?
can I just be a little geeky and just make a slight change in the wording? So they're talking about experience, so including any student teaching residency service under a temporary 90-day certificate or other required clinical practice, because
Yep,
thanks.
because it's all, the student teaching is a
Service
net-
under, right? a
yeah.
temporary 90-day
all
certificate.
actions.
Yeah.
Except for the certificate, which is not an action. Yes.
Mel,
thank you.
go ahead.
I may be reading too much into this, but can someone clarify what is meant by other required clinical practice by the program? I mean, I know I heard what was said, but what are you thinking? What does
Catherine?
that look like?
Catherine, do you want to respond to that? Because I think that came from you in terms of like that other required clinical practices.
Well, every traditional program has student teaching, right? So we don't know whether ARC may create a program. We don't know, do we want to label each for CREC, for residency, for a potential alternate route? Or do we want to say, the required clinical experience or something to that effect? I mean, I don't know what the wording looks a little choppy there, quite honestly, but
I just
think that
interpret it as, or maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. I wonder if it could say something like including any type of student teaching or any student teaching / clinical practice. Because where I went with that when I read it again was, oh my God, what if this program over here decided they wanted to require 15 weeks and this program wants 12 weeks and this program wants 13 weeks? Does that or other required by the program open it up for people to, kind of do like
Somebody
a
wants 2 weeks.
smorgasbord? I pick
Right.
my own menu, kind of.
right.
A program wants 3 days.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So are you suggesting that it should read including any student teaching / clinical practice or required clinical practice?
I guess, is it not going to be defined in the regulations? I mean, we're going to define this eventually, right?
I would
So,
hope so.
Yeah.
so it could say, which might be bring up the question again of why we have to move so quick on this one item, but including any student teaching / clinical practice, or just put student teaching in parentheses as defined by in regulation, whatever number that's going to be. I don't know. I just feel like we're going to forget to come back to this later. I mean, I hope we don't. Maybe Kristen,
Okay.
you're very good at keeping track of this, and so you're going to remind us to come back.
What about clinical
Shan?
requirement? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I do.
I guess a lot of this just seems kind of sort of predicated on the ARC having been approved in the first place, and to have been approved, it must have set the standard for what clinical practice they will require for successful completion. So I think you just have, like, it's kind of baked in. I mean, you could say something other required clinical practice by the program as per their program approval or something, but I think we just have to assume they're not just out there rogue operating, they've been approved. So they are therefore in compliance with whatever that requirement ends up being. So it's kind of a self-referential piece.
Okay. And then Hamish, thank you, Shannon.
If I'm hearing Mel, I'm not sure if I am hearing Mel correctly on this, so please let me know if I'm wrong, but is clinical practice the broadest of the terms here? And if so, does it just benefit us to define the term clinical practice in the above piece of it and just reference it? Like, I see a lot of times you define the term clinical practice here means student teaching approved by the whatever the language we're talking about is, and then we just include it here so we don't have to enumerate every single time. We can just reference the broadest term possible in there. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, no,
Thank you,
I was
Hamish.
just, student teaching, I mean, I think we all wish it was just called a residency and it was all a true residency, but that's never going to happen in our lifetime unless we get a lot of money from somewhere. But when I hear clinical practice, I also think about all the clinical practice they do before they ever get to student teaching. So in my mind, that encompasses everything, clinic starting, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and then you either student teach senior year or you student teach in your grad program. I don't know. I think we're probably stressing over it too much until we define what all of that means.
All right. So are there any edits you think we should make? Like, would it be helpful to remove the required clinical practice by the program?
Jenny Graves.
I guess I just have some confusion about clinical practice that's not student teaching. So if somebody could give me an example of what that is, besides what I think Mel was talking about, which is like maybe like field work prior to like finishing your degree to when you would then do student teaching. Like, is there an EPP program that does do a different clinical practice outside of like a typical student teaching or residency?
We call it clinical practice. They start their clinics in junior year. We don't call it whatever field work. We call it clinical practice. We have a clinical director and everything. So that was where I went. What if, I'm wondering, why do we need that or other required? Because this says successful completion of an alternate route, blah, 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 including student teaching, residencies, or service under. It's talking about an alternate route here. So why do we need to address what other programs are doing? Non-alternate route programs.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can just use the language or other requirements of the program for like program completion.
I see a thumbs up by Julianne on that. So, or other requirements. Of the program. Okay. All right, everybody's hand went down right after Julianne gave that thumbs up and Jenny suggested that. So I think we might have a level of consensus at this point.
I guess I'm confused about what number 2 is about then, because Julianne, couldn't that mean we put in there, okay, you must complete a performance assessment in part of programs? So again, I could have different requirements, or is that always the case anyway? Not me, but an EPP.
Yeah, EPPs can have their own, let's use EdTPA for an example. They don't have to, but some schools are like, nope, you're going to do EdTPA. Or recency, like some schools say, oh, I don't care if you took that course 20 years ago, we'll count it. And other schools are going to be like, no, you have to complete within the last 5 years or 2 years or whatever the case may be. I think the issue with number 2 is because it was looking forward that we might have other alternate routes in the future that would lead straight to initial. But our problem is we have existing ones already in place that you can't go to initial. The 3 ones we have or 4 ones, whatever. So we want to make clarification. So we want this language to not only cover existing ones, but open flexibility for new ones that might be approved with different requirements. For that reason, I think if you say if they complete the program, including any student teaching, residency, service under a temporary 90-day certificate, or other classroom experience required by the program, then that might be general enough. Because it's saying the program, but including, so you're completing a program and you're not worried about all the details of the program. That's still going to be figured out. You're just talking about the experience component.
I actually liked it better the other way because class, we're wordsmithing here. It was better
Yeah.
the other way and not putting classroom in there.
Yeah, or you just say other experience required by the
Yeah,
program.
yeah. Or other requirements of the program, which is what you had earlier. Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, I see Lauren's hand up, and then I think we should move this to a motion and a vote so that we can continue on with the other items that we have for action items.
Yeah, I just want to name, I think one of the challenges trying to get this language right is you're trying to get language right for programs the way they're currently structured. And some of the work that the board's going to be doing in the next couple of months is determining sort of writ large, what does that look like, both for traditional programs and alternate route programs. So I think no matter what you put here, it's going to be imperfect because of all the uncertainty of what the rules are going to be. So like, there's just not going to be a way that feels great, I think, about this language because it's connected to all of these other parts that currently are still question marks. Like, what will the regulations define as student teaching? Will there be separate alternate route regulations versus traditional? Like, it's a lot of important conversations that would make this part easier. So I think that's probably why everyone's kind of struggling with the languages. It's
Thank
at
you,
a tricky
Lauren.
time in the process. That's all.
All right.
All right.
Kristen, would you like to make a motion?
I would. I move to conditionally approve the certification proposal for pathways to professional certification, or sorry, for initial certification via alternate routes.
Do we have a second?
Rose second.
All right, that is Catherine Rowe with a second. And any discussion? We've had lots. All right, we will move this to a roll call vote. So I will start off with Bob.
Yes.
Thank you. Catherine Rowe.
Yes.
Thank you. Patrice.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
Thank you. Hamish.
Yes.
Mel.
Yes.
Margaret.
Yes.
Jenny Graves.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Tiffany's not here. Jen Delaney's not here. Elsa.
Yes.
Kristen.
Madam Chair, actually, excuse me, Madam Chair, point of order. Actually, Kristen St. Germain is here, but she got bumped out, so I'm trying to get her back in, but she is in as the alternate, okay, for Tiffany.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out for Tiffany. I'm sorry. So we're waiting on that one. And then Elsa, you said that that was a yes. Dr. Ritchie.
Yes.
And I am also, oh, yes. And Kristen Besega.
Yes.
Okay. So without Kristen St. Germain's vote at this time, while she's trying to get in, the motion has carried with the members that we do have here. So thank you all for that important discussion and figuring out and fiddling with the wording. We appreciate you. We want to move on to the next one.
Right. So the next one isn't really a proposal. It is more, it's more a memo. So I wrote this as a memo from me to the certification board. What I did and had Emma check through was go through what laws and regulations are currently surrounding Praxis Core. It was voiced by the board that one of the things we'd like to do is remove Praxis Core as a requirement of all EPPs, because currently in law, it says that the State Board of Ed will adopt guidelines regarding the use of these scores. And so the guidelines shall establish standards for using the scores. Later, the guidelines that came out said that Praxis is not required as a certification requirement, but Connecticut EPPs must still ensure that candidates take either Praxis Core, SAT, or ACT. So when we had this discussion of, could we make a legislative proposal for this? I went and did like the legal research, and if our board would like to consider removing the Praxis Core as a requirement, then we should be petitioning the State Board of Ed, because the law compels the State Board of Ed to adopt the guidelines regarding the use of scores. So if the State Board of Ed determines that they write a new state competency examination guidance document, then that's how we can get Praxis Core removed as a requirement. So if that's something that the board would like to do, we do have a pathway forward. We would need to basically talk with the State Board of Ed and have them rewrite the guidelines. It's unclear so far from my reading of the law whether or not we're on our own able to rewrite those guidelines, or if we are, it's still going to have to obviously go to the State Board of Ed first. So I guess in terms of removing Praxis Core as a requirement that all EPPs have for their students, is this something we'd like to pursue by having us write a new draft of guidelines? Would you like us to petition the State Board of Ed to do so? Since I don't come from an EPP background, I think it would be helpful to have someone from an EPP either, be the leader on petitioning the State Board of Ed or be the leader in writing these new guidelines. What are people's thoughts?
If we just get rid of it, what guidelines will we be writing?
So what it is from Public Act 1641, so from 2016, the State Board of Education is the body that has to adopt the guidelines, and the guidelines that they adopted require the EPPs to have all incoming candidates take Praxis Core, SAT, or ACT.
Right.
So we would need to have them change this guidance to say that it's no longer required.
So that would just be one sentence. We want this to no longer be required.
Right.
I'll take that on.
Yes, but I would assume that, petitioning the State Board of Ed, that they would need some convincing, right? They probably would want more of a rationale, which I feel like someone from an EPP would do a really great job on.
Yeah. Well, could we first ask them for their rationale as to why they did it? Never mind, that was a joke. So, I'll wait for other people to speak before I say anything more.
Thank you, Mel. Patrice, go ahead.
So if I'm reading it correctly, the Public Act 1641 still requires that the scores be used in some way. So I don't think the state board could just adopt guidelines that say don't use them at all. So I guess I'm confused about the route of let's just have them change the guidelines.
Right, Dr. Ritchie. Thank you, Patrice.
Yeah, I think it's for a question for the EPPs. To what extent do the EPPs use the Praxis one as a diagnostic, and is it really worth going through, removing the statute and doing this extra work? Who would it benefit?
It benefits the students because they have to pay for Praxis Core, and EPPs. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I've worked at 2 in this state, and neither of those EPPs use these scores to remediate. We didn't do it, but if it says Public Act 1641 gives authority to the board to establish, publish, and revise, then if we're recommending to them to get rid of it, then they're back in the position of getting rid of it, right? So that's what we would be proposing, is that we don't want it because A, it's a financial burden on students. B, EPPs are not using it. C, CAPE doesn't require it. So why are we doing it? And now a lot of people are giving us ACT, SAT scores, and it's, yeah, it just seems like if we're trying to get rid of barriers, it's a barrier worth fighting to get rid of.
And we had some extensive conversation a couple meetings back specific to this, where we talked about how it's not being used, and we were looking at some regulations related to it. So it makes sense to, go down the road of speaking to the SBE. So I guess it's a matter of, are we as a board stating that we want to have a conversation with the legal of SBE? Maybe it's Laura Stefan. And have that conversation around, we've discussed with EPPs on our board, what is their suggestion on the next steps? Should the board petition or adopt different guidelines? Is there legislation that they want to work into their next session? So I think that, that's what we're kind of pondering at this point. What were the 3 things that you had said, Kristen, that we should consider?
So my suggestions were either we could write guidelines ourselves and see if the state board co-approves them, and then, that would be the state board establishing new guidelines. I love your idea of reaching out to Lauren Stefan and being able to get, her legal opinion, right? Or alternatively, having us petition the state board of ed directly and say we would like this removed, for all the reasons that Dean Horton mentioned.
I think it would be good to get the lawyer's take on it, because maybe there's something, I know for me, Kristen does a great job of understanding all of this, but I don't want to even pretend that I understand everything about Public Act 1641 and how it came to be. So maybe seek advice first and then go from there. And if something we can take on and we just need to rewrite it, I'm willing to do that and get it started and bring something back to the board. And yeah.
Thank you, Mel.
I don't want to cause more work for other people. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I think our route is likely to have that conversation with Laura Stefan and see what her recommendation is. And if she recommends that no, we, the board, should write new guidance, or that we should petition the board, then we'll go ahead and do that. I just don't think that anything legislatively that we decide to do for this particular one will be in this session. It might have to be in the next one. So just so that we're all clear on that, though it sounds like we're just rewriting guidance, which won't have to go that way. So is everybody kind of feeling the same way about it? So I don't think we have to go through a full vote on this necessarily. I think that we can just go ahead and reach out to Laura and have that conversation with her. So thank you for the consideration and the idea to move forward. On our agenda, we have next regulations that were returned to the ad hoc, but I think we can hold off on those a little bit and maybe go into the initial to professional pathway.
I did not think we were presenting those today, and I didn't see them on the agenda or attachment. I would like to table the pathway to professional discussion until Monday.
Till Monday. You're referencing Monday.
Yeah, is it Monday, February 9th?
Oh, yes. So the February meeting, sorry. I was like, this Monday we have a meeting, because I don't remember scheduling another meeting in the near future. Just be aware that if we do table that language, that it will not get into this session, because it's a short session, and the idea was to have anything, but that's fine as well. Do we want to go into the regulations?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So regulations returned to the ad hoc for further review.
Yeah. Point of order, Madam Chair. So was that a motion and a second to move to table that to the next meeting?
Oh, my apologies. Kristen, so is that a motion to move that to the next meeting in February?
Yes.
Okay. So our initial to professional pathway motion is to move that to our February agenda. Do we have a second on that?
Rose, second.
Dr.
Thank
Rowe
you.
seconds. All right, is there any discussion?
Can I ask a question? Sorry, I should raise my hand. Sorry.
Sure, Hamish.
So are we saying through tabling it that we won't have any opinion on this for a whole year now? I just don't,
No.
I feel, or like have a formal way of presenting this in legislatively? Just because I feel like that's a missed opportunity, but
Yes.
if that's the case.
Thank you. Kristen, do you want to go ahead and respond to that part of it?
Yeah. So I think we will still have time to put it on the legislative agenda for this year because, once it's leaving us, legislators will see what our proposal is. They will see it's in the pipeline. I know that legislators do watch these meetings sometimes, as interesting as they are. And I also know that we have a whole bunch of regulations coming from the EPP program approval group that we're saying are going to make the legislative agenda for this year, and we haven't even started work on it yet. So I know that we're gonna I know that there is some flexibility, and I'm pretty confident that the discussion we'll have on February 9th will be able to be um, a little bit richer because the one proposal that's attached to the agenda was our last discussion, which was a long time ago. I think that one I brought up in like November or December.
We had
and
conversation
hasn't
November,
reflected
December.
like
Yeah.
any conversations since then.
That's really helpful. Thank you. That's helpful.
Mel, go ahead.
I was just going to recommend that maybe we could put this first on the agenda for the next meeting because I have lots of questions and I think other people are going to have lots of questions about this and we need to save some time. It always seems to get pushed or we got 5 minutes left and it really needs a larger discussion, I think. Just my opinion.
Great, thank you. I can certainly do that. All right, so the motion was seconded. We had some discussion around it. We'll just go ahead and send it to a vote then. Bob,
Yes.
Dr. Rowe,
Yes.
Patrice,
Yes.
Shannon,
Yes.
Hamish,
Yes, sorry.
Mel,
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes.
Jenny,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Kristen St. James, St. Germain, sorry.
I don't think she got back on, Madam Chair. I did send her the
Okay.
agenda with the link.
Elsa,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Dr. Ritchie,
Yes.
and myself is a yes as well. All right, so that motion carries to table it to the next meeting, put it top of the agenda. Thank you. All right, Kristen, if you want to go ahead with those regulations that the regulations group, thank you very much to the regulations group for meeting to go over these and have them ready for us to move forward.
All right, so it's just 4 of them. We had sent back 413 because we didn't pass the legislative proposal to change the interim educator certificate with coursework deficiency away from the 1 year with one renewal to 3 years, then we had to go back and adjust the regulations. So all of 413A1A is the same. That matches our current law saying that if you have an assessment deficiency, you get 3 years, a 3-year non-renewable interim educator certificate. So here's the new part is if you have a coursework deficiency, the interim educator certificate shall be valid for 1 year, reissued for a 2nd year. This is the current law. This is the current practice. So everything in 2 right here that's highlighted is just bringing it up to match current practice. The addition then would be the addition of the survey course in US history. So what this is saying is if you have your interim educator certificate, but you're missing coursework, then you have a 1-year interim educator certificate, which may be reissued for a 2nd year. And the discussion we had last time was really good because it was talking about how, like, well, if you're missing the special ed course, well, that's really important so that you know how to differentiate. It's your introduction to special ed so that you know special ed law and you don't put it off for 3 years, right? The reason there was a legislative proposal is that 2B, the coursework for vocational technical, actually is in law. So we would have had to change the law if we had wanted to change the length of time for the interim educator certificate for vocational technical. So I believe what I have here matches everybody's kind of expectations that we do want people with coursework deficiency to get that work done as quickly as possible so they get the 1 year with 1 renewal. Any thoughts or questions so far? All right. And there's no changes in 413B, the conditions of interim educator certificate. We kind of discussed at length last time, where we're making it more flexible. So you either complete your coursework and assessments, and then you can get your initial certificate. During that time that you may complete the beginning educator program. But if you're like still working on coursework, you're still working on assessments, maybe focus on what you need to get your certificate first, and then you still have your, 5 years to finish best or team. We had brought up at the last board meeting that 426, I had like suggested some edits to it, but then I think it was Julianne, I could be wrong, pointed out that it might not be needed anymore because the adult education authorization was for people who filled all the requirements for adult ed except for assessment requirements. Well, now there are no assessment requirements for adult ed, so this 426 we should allow to sunset. Any questions so far? All right, which leaves our last two. So these I know we had a discussion on at the last meeting, but so I wanted to bring it back to the ad hoc and make sure that we were reflecting the current practices and not changing how our school counselors and school psychologists attain their professional educator certificate. So what we're recommending is a repeal and replace of 558 and 562. So this is when they're going up to go get their professional educator certificate. They have to complete the requirements in 417. So that's the, teach for 5 years, complete team, and then the coursework. Their current coursework requirement is a minimum of 45 semester hours of graduate credit. If we had left it as suggested, that would be lowering the standard to 30 hours of graduate credit. So this language that's changed is matching the existing regulation. So they're still meeting the 45 semester hours of graduate credit, which is what is currently required for them to become professionally certified or hold the professional educator certificate.
I don't see any hands, so they're loving what you're saying.
All right. All right. So essentially the same thing for school psychologist, a repeal and replace of 562. So the current requirement is that they complete 60 semester hours of graduate credit. If we had just left it as meeting the requirements in 417, then that would be lowering the amount of coursework that they would have to complete. So this would say they still have to teach for 5 years, complete Bester Team, the beginning educator induction program, and then do their 60 hours of graduate credit. So in keeping with current practice. So seeing no questions or concerns, I move that batch 8 of regulations be brought to the Legislative and Policy Development Committee.
Do we have a second?
Fitzsimons seconds.
Sarah Fitzsimons seconds. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we will take it to a vote. All right, starting again with Bob.
Yes.
Dr. Rowe,
Yes.
Patrice McCarthy,
Yes.
Shannon Merriman,
Yes.
Hamish McPhail,
Yes.
Mel Horton,
Yes.
Margaret Gustafson,
Yes.
Jenny Graves,
Yes.
Sarah Fitzsimons,
Yes, with pleasure to have it done.
Elsa Batista,
Yes.
Kristen Vasega,
Yes.
Cynthia Ritchie.
Yes.
And myself, yes. So that passes unanimously. Before we get off of the call, I just want to say thank you to all of our regulations ad hoc members. They came together and have a quick meeting based off of our last meeting to get these kind of wrapped up so that we could have this meeting and get that part of the regulations done and moved on to the Legislative Policy Development Committee. Additionally, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the things that are moving forward from January, both January meetings. So currently, our board approved the reissuance with time served. That'll move forward. The Professional Educator Scholarship Program to move forward. From the last meeting, from this meeting, initial certification via alternative routes to move forward. Removing praxis will be going to Laura for some questions. We did not move forward the, I think it was the DSAP 3 years technical from the last meeting. And then we have the batches from the first January meeting and this meeting to move forward to LPCD, correct? All right. I'm not missing anything so that we can combine it and get it to LPDC without any delay. All right. Is there any adjustments that needed to be made to any of those 3 items of the legislative proposals for the reissuance with time served, professional educator scholarship program, or initial certification via alternative routes? I think it was just the adjustments that we made during the meeting, right? So Kristen, if you can get those 3 sent over to myself and Karen, and then we can combine the 2 batches if there was no amendments made to the last batch or this batch.
Sounds good. I can do that.
All right, perfect. I think that Mike had said that if we could get it to them by Monday, that would ensure that we were on their this coming Monday, that it would ensure that we were on their agenda for that. In the meantime, Karen and I will send them a message letting them know of the items. So again, thank you all. For February, we're putting to the top of the action items for discussion will be that pathway from initial to professional. And we will also have the discussion around Dr. Ritchie's proposal as well as part of that new business that was on there. Should anyone have any proposals that they would like us to consider, you would need to have them into Karen and I by, let's see, just making sure that we have the correct dates here. Review. So our next meeting is February 9th. So 10 days prior to that, February 9th would be, sorry, I'm just backtracking here.
Looking at around the 31st, which is soon.
Yeah, so really, yeah, yes. It would need to be, because Karen and I don't typically work on Saturdays and Sundays, so if you could get it into us by the 30th, which would help us to finalize the agenda. So if there are any items by Friday, that would be great. So that we can finalize the agenda and have them listed on the agenda. You can certainly send us the materials after that, but just let us know of your intention, what it's called, and then get us the materials by like the Monday so that we can include that. But it's more for finalizing the agenda. Okay. All right. Thank you all for the important conversation. I think we are like a minute early in ending the 1 hour meeting. So thank you all for the productive conversation. And as always, our SDE support and all that are involved in the work. We appreciate you. The working group is continuing to work, and I'm sure we're going to have some updates at the February meeting on where that is. They have a very aggressive timeline that they are hoping to meet. So we will get some stuff from them as well. So thank you very much. I will take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Hamish.
I'll
Can I get
second.
a seconded by Dr. Ritchie? Couldn't get on that quick enough. Thank you. I'm going to say by general consensus, we are adjourned. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Have a good day.